Now to the inside story of two Chicago brothers who turned on El Chapo, helping make today's conviction possible.
Amigo.
¿Qué dice? ¿Cómo está?
Bien, gusto saludarte. ¿Cómo está tu carnal?
Todo bien, ¿no? Ve aquí. Lástima que no me tocó verlo el otro día. Era mi hermano.
Pero ahí estamos a la orden, ya sabes.
Sí, oiga, todo bien, gusto saludarlo. Oiga, acá además lo estaba molestando para lo del otro día que recogí allá. Y le iba a decir, ahí tengo el cheque listo, no sé si... Le quería pedir un favor.
Dime.
¿Usted cree que pues lo podemos arreglar? ¿Me puede rebajar unos 5 pesos de esos?
¿A cómo tratamos?
Me lo está dando a 55.
Ay, ¿a cómo la van a pagar?
Yo le decía que si me hace el favor se los pago 50, pero ahí tengo el cheque.
What up, though? It's Big J, CEO of Rollin Entertainment. Presenting you today the second episode of Dope City. Today's episode is about the Flores twins taking down El Chapo. For those of you who don't know, the Flores twins come from an area in Chicago called Little Village. It's a mainly Hispanic area in Chicago. They born in 1981, came up a working class family. You know, they grew up mainly in a gang-infested neighborhood, mainly controlled by the Latin Kings in the south side of Chicago. They started a drug trade, getting into the drug trade in the early to middle 90s. They began to get into the drug trade, and to get all into the exclusive part, they were hooked up with the Sinaloa cartel by way of a man named Alfredo Hernandez. He was a high-ranking lieutenant in the Sinaloa cartel. But the Sinaloa cartel was controlled by Ismael Zambada. His street name, gang name is El Zamayo, and the face of it was El Chapo. But the man behind the whole thing was Ismael El Mayo Zambada. They were brought into the dope game by Ismael Zambada's son, Vincenti Zambada. Vincent, Vincenti, whatever his name. And they were brought into, that's how they were brought to the game. They later on linked up with Alfredo Hernandez, and for years they was dealing with El Chapo, and El Chapo was only known as the man. They was getting anywhere between 20 to 40 kilos at a time from Alfredo. It went to hundreds. And in the early 2000s, they actually hooked up with El Chapo. Like in 2002, 2003, they actually hooked up with him off a faulty drug shipment that was coming from Mexico that was destined for Chicago. It was some of the Mexicans who actually hooked him up or was supposed to bring the dope. They turned around and did a U-turn on him and act like they was pulled off by the cops and they some bullshit, and they pulled a fast one on him. That's how he hooked up with Alfredo. Alfredo later on turned him on to the man known as El Chapo. El Chapo wanted to know what was going on, why the shipments wasn't arriving on time, and so on. And later on, they linked up and started doing business. It was known that it was a 40-kilo shipment that wasn't on time or didn't arrive, and that's how El Chapo really started to connect with the Flores twins. In fact, they was over in the mountains meeting El Chapo all while he was on the run, and he was in the news and magazines and everything about a billionaire drug dealer. He was on the run for, I think he was captured the first time in the early 90s. He did like a few years, 6-7 years. He escaped the first time he came. Then he actually escaped again. And he escaped again. Then he was captured the last time he was captured and went through trial and was sentenced to life, 2 life sentences with no parole. Chapo actually, the Flores twins were actually the first people in America that El Chapo dealt with directly. You know, the twins. And his relationship with them grew to where, like I said, they were going into the mountains with him, meeting them with one of them, Margarito. It's Margarito and it's Pedro. Margarito was going over there, meeting him a lot, getting the orders and coming back, relate him to his brother, and they would run the day-to-day operations in Chicago for the Sinaloa cartel. Well, actually in the country for the Sinaloa cartel, because Chicago to this day is the main hub for cocaine when it comes across Mexico. It either hits Texas, LA, straight to Chicago. They were known to be flashy. In fact, in one episode they met Chapo and they had on some shorts and gold chains and jewelry, and he didn't understand why were they dressing like that, and he told them they were dressed like morons and put some more pants on and all that. The jewelry didn't mean anything, and that kind of made them understand what real money was, because you actually sit in front of a multi-billionaire playing a role of him, and he dressed in Wrangler boots, Wrangler blue jeans, cowboy boots, and cowboy hats. In 2005, 2006, one of the Flores' lieutenants accompanied them to Chicago. He was actually kidnapped by a rival Sinaloa cartel group called I believe they called the New Generation. They actually headed by the guy in charge now, El Mencho. They were kidnapped by him, and they were found to have a ledger knowing where to pick up money, where to do all types of things for the brothers to the cartel. They later on put him on a tree, and they tied him to a tree, beat him to death, and had one of the twins come back over there and let him see the tree where where he was executed. Just let them know that don't play with us about our money, about our coat, about anything. El Chapo actually X'd out a lot of links in America for the Flores twins, because after 2005, when the whole Black Mafia family was put to the side, put on the shelf, they were the high suppliers in America of cocaine. The Flores twins, they were the new heads in charge. They were known to get anywhere between 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 kilos at a time. They getting it directly from the cocaine boss, one of the cocaine bosses in the world. So they probably was getting a high grade of cocaine. So that's another twist to tell them how much they were actually getting. Their network was known to be between $120 million to $200 million drug network. They went through numerous states where they hid their drug proceeds, their drugs. They actually had high level homes in New York City, like in the Manhattan area, condominiums and different things where they stashed drugs at. They were going behind the Sinaloa cartel, dealing with some Colombians that were out of, I believe, California, that set up a network in New York. And Ismael Zambada's son was alerted to that, and they wanted to actually kill him because they was going behind their back dealing with somebody else or whatever. And he beat them to the punch. He set up the twins set up Ishmael's son to get busted, and he came. When he was apprehended and brought to America, he started to tell about crooked DEA agents, and he started to tell about his relationship with the Flores twins. And in fact, he started telling on them first, and later on, what I was tell, they told on the whole cartel. But they were apprehended when the son was apprehended. It went towards trying to protect his father, El Chapo. DEA wasn't buying none of it, but he had said something in regards to make them seem crooked. So they left him alone. El Chapo messed the whole investigation up by him saying he was going to kill the DEA agents who was trying to apprehend him. Word got to them, they put a whole lot of salt on him and they captured him. The twins in that time were probably 10-figure. They were super rich. They was high on the pedestal on cocaine sales, and life was good. 2006, 2007, major loads were apprehended coming from Mexico to Texas, Laredo, Texas to Chicago. I'm talking hundreds of kilos to actually the biggest load was apprehended was like a 450 kilo shipment meant for Chicago was actually took down. The Flores twins dealt with many black street gangs or just other urban street gangs in Chicago, like the GDs, the Vice Lords, to that nature. They supplied all of them with the high grade cocaine, and they actually, when they were apprehended, they started telling on everybody, everybody they were supplying and their suppliers. They told on over 50 people. It went from the bottom, from a half a kilo deal all the way to El Chapo. They testified against everybody. In 2000, when actually one of them was going to get kicked out of his agreement with the government because he was hiding some money. I guess when you're supposed to, when they tell, you got to tell everything you have, tell everything they want to know. And word was that I think it was Pedro, was keeping some money somewhere hidden and wasn't letting them know about it. Letting the government know about all his assets because they wanted everything. And they was going to kick him out the program until he agreed to go to Sinaloa, to Culiacan, Mexico, to meet with El Chapo, and actually had it on the wiretap. Actually had it on the wire, him talking to El Chapo.
¿Cuánto es lo que te entregaron?
Me entregaron 20.
¿Cuánto?
20.
Ah, bueno, entonces mañana recojo el dinero, ¿está bien?
¿Sí? Ok. Ok, le agradezco mucho. Es que también allá el otro señor también me había dado algo que no salió bueno y los tengo que ahí emparejar.
Oye, ¿tú no tienes manera de traer ese dinero hasta aquí?
¿Hasta aquí? Sí, ¿cómo no?
Well, a massive cocaine load that was meant for Chicago. El Chapo, as I said earlier, was one of the biggest drug dealers in America, in the world history. But he was the face of the Sinaloa cartel. But like I said, the man behind the scenes is still in the clouds today. You know what I'm saying? So that's neither here nor there. But El Chapo was the face of it. He's a billionaire from what they was put out there. His things he have done and whatever. But I know this for a fact that the twins and some of the guys they was dealing with, how they was captured was actually kind of crazy because they was just normal guys on the top of the chain, and it started from a guy at the bottom of the chain getting captured with an eighth a kilo of cocaine. He was captured and he told on the guy was getting half a key. He told on the guy was getting 2, 3, 4 keys. He told on the guy that was getting and they went on to the top of that and they got to them. And when they was knocked by the DEA, they started telling on everybody in Mexico. That was the closest the DEA ever got to someone in this country dealing directly with El Chapo to this day. El Chapo was apprehended, I believe 4 years ago. He went on trial a couple years ago. He had a long trial. He had many witnesses. The twins were some of the witnesses who testified against El Chapo, stating the numerous beatings they have seen, murders. Like I said, one of their top, the guy who introduced them, a guy who they knew pretty well, was tied to a tree and beaten to death. They actually said that. One of them was actually kidnapped. Pedro was kidnapped, and they let him out in the desert, and it was just a long night for him. They testified about everything. Chapo received, like I said, 2 life sentences, no parole. He in Flores Supermax Federal Penitentiary in Colorado to this day. The Flores twins are witness protection. One of them would just try to get out via COVID reasons. They denied him. He got to stay the remainder of his sentence. His wife, both of their wives, I think are trying to get a show out right now, but I think the government or whatever they got going on with what they doing don't want to allow it until they come home from penitentiary. Pedro, Margarito, they at that time were some of the biggest in the era. Like I said earlier, they had direct links to El Chapo, El Mayo. They had some direct connections. They folded under pressure, and that's pretty much how the game go. You be the biggest ever and all that, but in the end of the day, who knows? It's just what things happen. I guess they couldn't take what was happening. They later on said they agreed to tell and snitch on the Sinaloa cartel because they were scared for their life, because of the cartel wars that were going on in Mexico. It was 3 different factions going to war, and still are to this day, over drug turf, over control of Mexico, over control of the drug trade. I believe one of them will be released from federal custody next year, and the other one 2 years later. Or one could be home, I'm not for sure. I don't know how that really goes, but if I'm mistaken, one gets out next year and one gets out in like 2023. Now, actually, the Flores twins were actually firstly introduced to the drug gang by their father before they ever met a cartel member or anything. He actually was in the game just like they were. He was a working class man, but he had his other ear to the streets with him. He introduced them, to be exact, to a source of the Sinaloa cartel. To go on into the story, he was executed in 2009 off of different cartel orders, because they believe and they actually learned of the cooperation by the Flores twins with the United States government. He was killed. He's never been found to this day, but he was whacked out off the orders of the cartel bosses. The Flores twins moved into years of being incarcerated, and they were actually brought to New York to testify on El Chapo, on his monumental, historic, whatever you want to call it, trial in 2017, 2018, where he was convicted and charged with murder, drug trafficking, numerous offenses. He was charged with all of them, and like I say, two life sentences, no parole. The Flores twins to this day are in witness protection, trying to come home. I don't know too much about none of their family members, other than I think they had some cousins who was tied in to something. They told on them too, and they were later apprehended. They had got like 7 or 8 year stretches in federal prison. To this day now, the Mexican drug war consists of El Mencho versus El Zamayo. These are the 2 heavy hitters in the Mexican cartels, and they're vying for control of the cartels. Do the Flores twins have information on them? I seriously doubt it, because if they did, they probably would have been trying to get them by now. But I don't think they had too much information on the new form cartel to this day. El Chapo has a clothing line going on called 701 Clothing. 701 actually he was the 701st billionaire in the world. So that's where the name 701 comes from. His kids are actually vying for control in Mexico for a piece of the drug pie or all of the drug pie. I believe that it's in the air right now. I believe they're back working with El Zamayo, who kind of like put El Chapo in front of him and let him take all the heat. He just sat back. You know, he's in his late 70s right now to this day. He's been in control for a long time. That's pretty much it with the whole Flores took down El Chapo. They took him down. He trusted them, you know. Like I said, they was kidnapped in Mexico and beaten and all that, tortured. And the guys who did it were actually killed on Chapo's orders. That's how much love and respect he had for those guys for moving the biggest loads of cocaine you can ask for. And that was his payback to them, to protect them, and their payback to him was to testify on them and to help give him 2 life sentences without parole. In the next year or two, they'll be both free men, probably multi-millionaires, doing what the average federal informant does. Because you ask me, all of them make the same. When they get up in that level, it's either, oh, I told because I was fearing for my life. You ain't feared for that shit when you was in the game, but you feared for it after the game, or after you realized it was over with. So that's just, they just told because they didn't want to go to prison. And that's pretty much what it is. I'm Big Jerry, Rollin Hard Entertainment. Subscribe to my channel, Rollin Hard Entertainment. Show some love. And that's pretty much what it is. Holla at me.
No, señor. Hace muchos años sí la he probado, pero llegar adicto no. Hace más de 20 años que no consumo ninguna droga.
Cuando lo hizo fue muy accidental.
Sí, señor.
Para su reciente fuga, usted buscó su libertad a costa de todo, a costa de arriesgar a todo el mundo.
Nunca pensé eso de arriesgar a nadie, sino que le pedí a Dios y salió perfecto todo. Por eso estoy aquí, gracias a Dios.
Las dudas que usted se ha logrado salir, hay que destacar que no existió violencia. Usted ha visto que muchas fugas se hacen sobre la base de violencia, fuego armado.
Pues aquí no, conmigo no llegó a eso. Algunas otras situaciones que se han visto,